The message came at 3 in the morning, ship time. General Tae Woo-jin was sleeping in his quarters aboard the Terran battleship Iron Mountain when his communication device screamed to life. He sat up quickly, his heart already beating fast. In 20 years of military service, he had learned that calls at this hour never brought good news. "Sir." The voice of his aide crackled through the speaker. "We have received a distress signal from New Busan Colony." It cut off after 12 seconds. Tae was already pulling on his uniform. What did it say? "Just 2 words, sir. They're here." Then nothing. New Busan was a peaceful world. It had no military value. It was home to farmers, teachers, and families who wanted a quiet life among the stars. 2.3 million people lived there, growing food that fed a dozen other human colonies. Tae had visited once, 3 years ago. He remembered green fields that stretched to the horizon, and children playing in streets that had never known war. "Set course immediately," Tae ordered. Maximum speed. The Iron Mountain and its escort ships tore through space for 6 hours. During that time, Tae tried to contact New Busan 17 times. Each time, he received only silence. He stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak past, and felt something cold growing in his chest. When they arrived, he understood why no one had answered. The planet was burning. From orbit, Tae could see massive black scars across the continents where cities had once stood. Smoke rose in thick columns that reached into the upper atmosphere. The orbital stations that had welcomed trading ships were now twisted metal, still glowing from weapon impacts. "Life signs," Tae said. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. "Scan for life signs." His sensor officer worked frantically at her console. Seconds passed, then a minute. Finally, she looked up at him with tears running down her face. "Sir, I am detecting approximately 400 life signs, scattered, mostly in remote areas." She swallowed hard. The colony population was 2.3 million. Tae closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed in their depth. "Prepare landing shuttles. I want medical teams, rescue units, and documentation officers. We are going down there." Lieutenant Una Park was 26 years old. She had joined the military to see the galaxy and help people. She had never seen war. As she stepped off the shuttle onto the soil of New Busan, she learned what war truly looked like. The capital city of Haenam was gone. Not damaged, not ruined. Gone. Where 300,000 people had lived and worked and loved, there was now only a crater filled with ash and melted stone. The heat from the blast had been so intense that it had turned sand into glass for kilometers in every direction. Una walked through what had been a suburb. She found a school, or what remained of one. The walls had partially survived, though they were blackened and crumbling. Inside, she discovered something that made her stop breathing. Children's drawings still hung on one wall. The fire had not reached this corner of the building. Una saw pictures of families, of pets, of spaceships flying toward distant stars. One drawing showed a little girl with black hair holding hands with her parents. Above them, she had written in careful letters, "My family will live on the stars forever." Una photographed everything. Her hands would not stop shaking. General Tae walked through the mass graves. The attackers had been thorough. They had used energy weapons on the cities, kinetic bombardment on the industrial areas, and ground troops to hunt down survivors. The bodies in the graves showed signs of organized execution. Men in one pit, women in another, children in a third. He found a woman still alive, hiding in a collapsed basement. She was badly burned and barely conscious. When she saw his uniform, she grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "They came without warning," she whispered. Ships filled the sky, then fire. So much fire. She coughed, and blood came up. They said we were being reduced. They said it was mercy. She died before the medical team could reach her. Tae stood over her body for a long time. Around him, his soldiers searched for more survivors. They would find 387 people alive on a world that had held millions. Most of them were in shock, unable to speak, unable to understand why their families were gone. 3 hours after landing, Tae received a communication. It came on official Galaxy Council frequencies. marked with the seals of the 12 elder species who ruled most of known space. To the human military commander present at Colony New Busan, the message read, "The action you have witnessed was a necessary correction. Humanity's expansion has been deemed a threat to galactic stability. This cleansing serves as a warning. Cease all expansion beyond your current borders immediately. No further colonization will be permitted. Comply with these terms, and no additional action will be necessary. Resist, and further reductions will follow. The Galaxy Council has spoken. This matter is concluded." Tay read the message 3 times. Then he walked outside and looked up at the smoke-filled sky. "They think this is mercy," he said quietly. "They murdered 2 million people and call it a warning." Yuna approached him carefully. She had never seen her commander look like this. His face showed no anger, no grief, no fear. It showed nothing at all. And that emptiness frightened her more than any rage could have. "Sir," she said, "what do we do?" Tay did not answer immediately. He looked at the ruins around them, at the graves being dug, at the few survivors being loaded onto shuttles. He thought about the children's drawings in that burned school. He thought about the woman who had died holding his arm. "Document everything," he finally said. "Every body, every name we can recover, every piece of evidence. I want the galaxy to see what civilized species do to the innocent." He turned and walked toward his shuttle. As he passed Yuna, he spoke again, and his voice was as cold as the space between stars. "And then we go home. We have a war to plan." Yuna watched him go. She did not know it then, but she had just witnessed the moment when humanity's future changed forever. The universe had been cruel to her species before. It had sent plagues and disasters and countless hardships, but it had never before made the mistake of making humanity angry. That mistake would cost the galaxy everything it thought it knew about war. The War Council met in a bunker deep beneath the mountains of Korea. 7 of humanity's highest military commanders sat around a table made of black stone. The room had no windows. The walls were thick enough to survive a nuclear blast. This was where humanity would decide its future. General Tae Woojin stood at the head of the table. He had not slept in 4 days. On the wall behind him, images from New Busan played on repeat. Burning cities, mass graves, a child's drawing of stars she would never reach. "You have all seen the evidence," Tae said. His voice was flat and tired. 2.3 million dead, 387 survivors. The Galaxy Council claims responsibility. They call it a mercy. Admiral Han Sumi leaned forward. She was 60 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too many battles. She commanded the Terran Navy's tactical division and was known throughout the fleet for finding ways to win fights that seemed impossible. "They expect us to surrender," she said. "Every young species before us has done exactly that. The Council gives them a beating, and they fall in line. Can we even fight them?" asked General Kyu Dong-ha. He was a ground forces commander, a veteran of the Mars Rebellion 20 years earlier. His face was covered in scars from close combat. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their fleets outnumber us 50 to 1. Director Yun Nari spoke next. She ran intelligence and special operations for all of human space. She was small and quiet, the kind of person you would never notice in a crowd. That was exactly why she was so dangerous. "Numbers and technology are not everything," she said. "I have studied the Council's war records. They have fought many young species. They always win. But they always win the same way." She stood and walked to the wall display. The images of New Busan disappeared, replaced by historical data. The Council fights what they call civilized war. They strike, then wait. They negotiate between battles. They give their enemies time to recover, time to consider surrender. Their wars last for decades, sometimes centuries. But casualties are relatively low on both sides. They believe this makes them advanced, sophisticated. It makes them slow, Admiral Yongbora said. She commanded the defense fleets that protected Earth and the core colonies. They do not know how to fight any other way. Exactly, Un said. They have rules. Proportional response. Limited engagement. Wars fought by gentlemen's agreements. She returned to her seat. They have never fought a species that refuses to play by those rules. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what she was suggesting. General Jae Ho-sung ran the Weapons Development Division. He was a scientist as much as a soldier, responsible for every new gun and bomb and ship that humanity created. If we abandon civilized warfare, he said slowly, we will need to embrace total war. Every weapon we have, every tactic, no matter how brutal. We would need to fight in ways that would horrify the galaxy. They murdered children, Tae said quietly. They put families in mass graves and called it mercy. I stopped being horrified 3 days ago. A knock came at the door. General Dae Hyun-ki, who managed logistics and supply for the entire military, checked the security screen. The council's ambassador has arrived, he said. They sent someone to deliver their terms in person. Tae nodded. Let them in. Let us hear what our betters have to say. The ambassador was a Veros. His species had been part of the Galaxy Council for 8,000 years. He was tall and thin, covered in blue feathers that shimmered under the lights. His eyes were large and golden, and they looked at the human commanders with obvious contempt. I am Ambassador Kel, he said. His voice was musical but cold. I speak for the Council of 12. I am here to explain your options and accept your surrender. Admiral Han laughed. It was not a kind sound. You murdered 2 million of our people, and you expect surrender? Kel made a gesture that might have been a shrug. Correction, Admiral. We demonstrated consequences. Your species expands too quickly. You breed too fast. You take resources that should belong to established civilizations. This was necessary. Necessary. Q repeated. His hands had curled into fists. Yes. You are young. You do not understand how the galaxy works. The elder species maintain order. When young species grow too ambitious, they must be pruned. This is how peace is preserved. Kel spread his feathered arms. But the council is not cruel. Accept your boundaries. Stop expanding. In a few centuries, when you have proven yourselves civilized, you may be granted more space. And if we refuse? Tae asked. Kel made a sound like breaking glass. It took the humans a moment to realize he was laughing. Then we continue the correction. 1 colony at a time, if necessary. You cannot win against us. Your ships are primitive. Your weapons are weak. Your species has existed for only a fraction of our history. You are children, throwing tantrums against adults. He looked around the room with his golden eyes. Be smart, little humans. Accept your place. Learn from this. Grow. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Admiral Han stood up slowly. She walked toward Kel until she was standing directly in front of him. She was half his height, but something in her eyes made him step backward. You speak of civilized war, she said. Rules and proportions and gentlemen's agreements. You have played at war for 10,000 years, never truly risking anything, never truly suffering. She smiled, and it was the smile of something ancient and hungry. Would you like to know what humans call that kind of war? Kel did not answer. We call it a game, Han continued. And we stopped playing games when you burned our children. She turned back to the other commanders. I think we are done here. You are making a mistake, Kel said. His voice had lost some of its confidence. The council will learn. Tae interrupted. He pressed a button, and the door opened behind Kel. Go back to your masters. Tell them that humanity has received their message. Tell them we understand now what civilized species are capable of. Kel began to leave, then stopped at the door. What should I tell them, is your answer? Tae looked at him with empty eyes. Tell them they will hear our answer soon. Tell them to listen carefully, because we will only say it once. After Kel was gone, the 7 commanders looked at each other. They all knew what came next. They all knew what it would cost. So, Admiral Yong said finally, how does one declare war on the galaxy? General Tae smiled grimly. With words first, then with everything we have. He looked at the images of New Busan still playing on the wall. He thought about the mother who had died in his arms. He thought about the drawings made by children who would never grow up. Begin preparations, he ordered. We have a message to send. And then we have a galaxy to teach the true meaning of war. The commanders rose and went to work. In bunkers and shipyards and laboratories across human space, millions of men and women began preparing for something no species had ever attempted before. They were going to make the entire galaxy afraid of them. And they were going to succeed. The broadcast station sat on a small moon orbiting Jupiter. It was humanity's most powerful communication array, capable of sending signals across the entire galaxy. For decades, it had been used for trade negotiations, scientific discussions, and diplomatic messages. Today, it would be used for something very different. General Te Wujin stood in a simple room with gray walls. There were no decorations, no flags, no symbols of military power. Just him, a camera, and a microphone. He had chosen this simplicity carefully. He did not want to look impressive. He wanted to look like what he was. A man who had seen something terrible and had made a decision. Behind the camera, Lieutenant Yuna Park checked the equipment one final time. Her hands were steady now. 3 weeks had passed since New Busan, and she had changed. The young officer who had cried while photographing children's drawings was still there. But something harder had grown around her. Something that would not break again. "We are ready, sir," she said. "Once you begin speaking, your words will reach every communication system in the galaxy. Within 6 hours, every species, every world, every ship will hear you." Te nodded slowly. He had written his speech 100 times, throwing away each version until he found words simple enough to carry the weight of what needed to be said. "Begin transmission," he ordered. A red light appeared on the camera. Te looked directly into it and began to speak. "To the Galaxy Council and all species who serve them, my name is Te Wujin. I am a general of the human military forces. I am speaking to you from our home system. And I am speaking on behalf of all humanity." He paused, letting his words travel outward into the dark between stars. 3 weeks ago, your forces attacked our colony of New Busan. 2.3 million humans lived there. Farmers, teachers, doctors, children. They had no weapons. They posed no threat to anyone. They simply wanted to live peacefully among the stars. His voice remained calm, almost gentle. "You killed them all. You burned their cities. You hunted down survivors. You put families into mass graves. And then you sent us a message calling it mercy. You called it a warning. You told us to accept our place and learn from our punishment." Te's eyes hardened. "We have learned. But not the lesson you intended." He took a single step closer to the camera. "For 10,000 years, you have ruled this galaxy. You have made rules about how wars should be fought. Civilized rules, you call them. You strike, then wait. You negotiate between battles. You limit your destruction to acceptable levels. You fight wars that last centuries but rarely threaten your existence." His voice grew colder. "We understand now why you made these rules. They protect you. They ensure that no matter how long a war lasts, the old powers never truly fall. Young species fight by your rules because they do not know any other way. They lose slowly and painlessly, and eventually they submit." He shook his head slowly. "Humanity will not play this game." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. "You showed us what civilized species do to the innocent. You showed us that your rules protect only yourselves. You showed us that mercy, in your language, means murdering children so their parents learn obedience." Te's hands curled into fists at his sides. "So here is humanity's answer to your mercy. Here is what we have learned. Here is what we will teach you in return." He spoke the next words slowly, clearly, making sure they would echo across 10,000 worlds. "No more civilized war." The phrase sat in silence for a moment. "We will not strike and wait. We will not pause for negotiation. We will not accept proportional response. We will not give you time to recover between battles. We will not follow your ancient rules designed to keep you safe." His voice rose slightly, gaining force. "We will come at you without stopping. We will attack your worlds, your stations, your ships, your supply lines, your infrastructure. We will fight you in the light and in the dark. We will use every weapon we have and every weapon we can create. We will give you no rest, no peace, no moment to catch your breath." He leaned toward the camera. "You think you understand war. You do not. You have played at war like children playing games. making rules to keep yourselves comfortable. Humanity has fought real wars. We have fought ourselves, which is far harder than fighting strangers. We have burned our own cities and killed our own brothers. We know what total war looks like. His eyes were empty now, showing nothing but cold certainty. You are about to learn. Tay straightened his shoulders. This message is not a declaration of war. War requires two sides willing to engage as equals. You made clear at New Busan that you do not see us as equals. You see us as children to be disciplined. A ghost of a smile crossed his face, but there was no warmth in it. Very well. We accept your terms. We are not your enemy. We are your consequence. We are the result of your own cruelty coming back to find you. He took a breath. To the people of New Busan, the 2,300,000 voices that were silenced, I make this promise. We will remember you. Every name we can recover, we will remember. Every face, every story, every dream that was stolen from you, we will carry forward. And we will make sure the galaxy remembers too. His voice softened just slightly. To any species listening who was not part of this atrocity, we have no quarrel with you. Stay out of our way. Do not shelter Council forces. Do not support their war effort. If you remain neutral, you will not be harmed. We are not monsters. We do not kill innocents. The softness vanished, but to the Council and all who serve them. Understand this clearly. You wanted humanity reduced. You wanted us to know our place. You wanted us to learn fear. He shook his head slowly. Instead, you taught us that your rules are lies. You taught us that your civilization is a mask hiding the same cruelty that exists in all thinking creatures. You taught us that we cannot reason with you, cannot negotiate with you, cannot trust you. His final words came out like hammer blows. You taught us that the only language you understand is force. And humans speak that language better than any species in this galaxy. He stepped back from the camera. The Council burned New Busan because they thought it would break us. They thought we would fall in line like every young species before us. They thought we would be afraid. A terrible calm settled over his features. They were wrong. He gave a slight nod. We are coming. And we do not stop. We do not tire. We do not forgive. We do not forget. You have approximately 4 weeks before our first strike reaches your space. Use that time however you wish. Pray to your gods. Say goodbye to your families. Make whatever preparations you think will save you. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. But somehow it carried more force than anything he had said before. They will not be enough. He raised his hand in a gesture that might have been a salute, or might have been farewell. This is General Tae Woojin, speaking for Earth, speaking for humanity, speaking for the dead of New Busan. You will hear from us again very soon. The red light on the camera went dark. Tae stood motionless for a long moment, staring at the blank lens. Then he turned to Yuna, who was watching him with wide eyes. Is it done? He asked. Yes, sir. Transmitting now. The entire galaxy will know within hours. Tae nodded slowly. Then we have work to do. The speech means nothing without action to back it up. He walked toward the door, then stopped. Lieutenant, the drawings you recovered from the school in New Busan. Do you still have them? Yes, sir. Keep them safe. When this is over, I want them displayed somewhere permanent, so no one ever forgets why we did what we are about to do. He left the room without another word. Behind him, his message raced outward at the speed of light, carrying words that would shake the foundations of a 10,000-year empire. The galaxy had never faced an enemy like humanity. They were about to learn why that was terrifying. The Galaxy Council laughed at General Tae's message. They shared it among themselves as entertainment. Here were the little humans, pretending to be dangerous, making threats they could never carry out. The elder species had seen this before. Young races often raged against their correction. They always failed. The Council's military leaders gathered to discuss the situation. They were not worried. Human fleets numbered perhaps 200 warships. The Council controlled over 10,000. Human technology was at least 3 centuries behind the elder species. Human military history was barely a footnote compared to empires that had fought wars across millennia. They will strike somewhere within the month, the Veros admiral predicted. We will meet them with overwhelming force, destroy their fleet, and the matter will be settled. Perhaps we will need to reduce another colony or two. But they will learn eventually, the other admirals agreed. This was how it always went. Young species raged, then submitted. The galaxy would continue as it always had. They were wrong. Admiral Hansumi launched her first attack exactly 4 weeks after the broadcast, just as Tay had promised. But she did not attack with the main fleet. She attacked with 40 small, fast ships that struck a council supply depot in the middle of the night cycle. They destroyed everything: fuel, ammunition, food, spare parts, and vanished before the defense forces could respond. 3 hours later, another group of small ships hit a communication relay station 200 light-years away. They did not just damage it. They destroyed it completely, along with all backup systems. 5 hours after that, a third group struck a medical supply convoy. Then a fourth hit a shipyard. Then a fifth attacked a military training facility. The Council's admirals began to understand that something was wrong. These were not the actions of a species preparing for honorable battle. These were the actions of something that fought like a disease, spreading everywhere at once, impossible to predict or contain. They are striking at random, the Veros admiral said, confused. There is no pattern, no strategy. They are wasting resources on targets of no military value. But Director Unari had planned every attack carefully. She was not striking at random. She was striking at the things that made war possible. Supplies, communications, transportation, medical care, the boring, unglamorous systems that kept armies functioning. Within 2 months, the Council began having trouble moving their fleets. Supply lines became unreliable. Messages were delayed or lost. Ships could not get spare parts. Crews could not get proper food or medicine, and the attacks never stopped. General Q Dong-ha landed ground forces on Velos Prime, a major world of the Veros species. But he did not try to capture the planet. That would have been impossible with his limited forces. Instead, his soldiers destroyed every power station, every water treatment plant, every food distribution center. They planted bombs in transportation networks and broadcasting systems. Then they left. The planet did not fall to human conquest. It fell to chaos. Without power, cities went dark. Without clean water, disease spread. Without food distribution, people starved. The great civilization of Velos Prime collapsed not because of military defeat, but because the systems that made civilization possible had been destroyed. The Council demanded that the humans fight properly. They sent message after message insisting on traditional engagement, fleet against fleet, army against army, as civilized species had always done. The humans did not reply. General J. Ho-sung unveiled weapons that the Council had never imagined. Kinetic bombardment, giant metal rods dropped from orbit that struck with the force of nuclear weapons but left no radiation. Biological agents designed to attack specific species while leaving others unharmed. Psychological warfare broadcast on all frequencies, showing images of New Busan, playing the screams of dying children, reminding the galaxy every hour of every day what the Council had done. The elder species began to crack. The Haran, a species that had been Council members for 6,000 years, sued for separate peace. They withdrew their fleets from the war and declared neutrality. The Council threatened them with punishment, but the Council could no longer project power effectively. Their supply lines were broken. Their communications were unreliable. Their military was exhausted from fighting an enemy that attacked without warning and disappeared before they could respond. Commander Yuna Park, she had been promoted 3 times in 6 months, led a special operations team to the homeworld of the species that had commanded the purification fleet. The species was called the Morath, and they had been responsible for planning and executing the massacre at New Busan. Yuna's team did not attack military targets. Instead, they took over every broadcasting system on the planet. For 12 hours, they showed images of New Busan on every screen in every home, every office, every public space. The mass graves, the burned cities, the children's drawings. At the end of the broadcast, Yuna herself appeared on screen. She held up a single drawing, the one showing a little girl reaching toward the stars. "We remember everything," she said. "Do you?" Then her team vanished, leaving the Morath population in shock. Within a week, massive protests erupted across their world. Citizens who had been told that New Busan was a legitimate military operation now saw the truth. The Morath government collapsed within a month, replaced by leaders who immediately surrendered to humanity. One by one, the council species fell. Not to military conquest, humanity did not have the forces for that. They fell to disruption, to chaos, to the destruction of everything that held their civilizations together. They fell because they had spent 10,000 years fighting wars with rules, and they did not know how to handle an enemy that refused to follow any rules at all. The humans did not occupy planets. They did not enslave populations. They did not commit atrocities against civilians, but they destroyed the ability of their enemies to function as modern societies. They proved that a civilization, no matter how old or powerful, was only as strong as its weakest systems. Admiral Han watched from the bridge of her flagship as another council fleet surrendered without firing a shot. Their ships were out of fuel. Their crews were starving. Their commanders had received no orders in weeks because every communication relay in the sector had been destroyed. They still do not understand, she said quietly to Tay, who had joined her for this moment. They keep waiting for us to fight them properly. They keep expecting us to line up our ships and exchange fire like civilized species. Tay watched the enemy fleet drift helplessly in space. Once, these had been the most powerful warships in the galaxy. Now they were empty shells crewed by exhausted, broken beings who just wanted the nightmare to end. They called us children, he said. They thought they could teach us our place. They forgot that children grow up. He turned away from the viewport. And sometimes, they grow up angry. 18 months after the destruction of New Busan, the Galaxy Council requested unconditional surrender negotiations. 5 of the 12 elder species had collapsed into civil war. 3 had lost the ability to wage interstellar conflict entirely. The remaining 4 had no choice but to submit. The war was over, but the hard part, deciding what kind of galaxy would rise from the ashes, was just beginning. The tribunal was held on Earth, in a building that had once been used for international justice centuries ago. The old courtroom had been rebuilt for this moment. Where human judges had once sat, now sat representatives of humanity. Where human criminals had once stood trial, now stood the surviving leaders of the Galaxy Council. There were 19 of them, admirals, governors, council members, the beings who had ordered the attack on New Busan or had supported it with their silence. They stood in a row, their hands bound with simple metal chains. Some of them were defiant, most of them were afraid. General Tae Woo-jin entered the courtroom and took his place at the central podium. He looked older than he had 2 years ago. The war had cost him something that he would never get back, but his eyes were still clear, still certain. You have been brought here to answer for the massacre of New Busan, he said. 2,300,000 human lives were taken by your orders, your ships, your soldiers. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is not whether you are guilty. The question is what justice looks like. Ambassador Kell, the same Veros who had delivered the council's demands 2 years earlier, stepped forward. His beautiful blue feathers were dull now, his golden eyes tired. You have won, he said. Do what you will. Execute us. Make examples of us. This is how war has always ended. The victors punish the defeated. Tay studied him for a long moment. That is what you expect, is it not? A quick death. A dramatic ending. Something your descendants can turn into a story of martyrdom. He shook his head slowly. We have something else in mind. He pressed a button, and images appeared on the walls of the courtroom. New Busan. Not as it had been burned and dead, but as it was now. Construction equipment. Foundation stones. The beginnings of new buildings rising from the ash. New Busan is being rebuilt, Tay said. Not as a memorial, though there will be memorials. It is being rebuilt as a living colony. In 5 years, humans will live there again. They will farm the same fields and walk the same streets and send their children to new schools. He looked at the prisoners. And you will help them? Kell's eyes widened. What? What? Your sentence is not death. Your sentence is life. You will be transported to New Busan. You will live there, among the humans who are rebuilding what you destroyed. You will work alongside them. You will learn their names, their stories, their dreams. You will watch their children grow up. Several of the prisoners began to protest, but Tay raised his hand for silence. You called us children once. You said we needed to learn our place. Now you will learn yours. You will spend the rest of your lives surrounded by the consequences of your actions. You will see what your mercy truly cost. You will remember, every single day, what you did. He stepped down from the podium and walked closer to the prisoners. Your children and grandchildren will be welcome to visit you. We want them to come. We want them to see New Busan. We want them to meet the humans who live there. We want them to understand, in a way that you never will, that the people you tried to reduce are not threats to be managed. They are neighbors to be known. Admiral Han entered the courtroom and stood beside Tay. She carried a small box in her hands. We recovered these from the ruins, she said, opening the box. Inside were dozens of children's drawings, carefully preserved. The little girl reaching for the stars, families holding hands, spaceships flying toward adventure. She walked down the line of prisoners, showing them each drawing. These belong to children you killed, she said quietly. Children who drew pictures of the future they would never see. We are not executing you because death would be too easy. We want you to look at these drawings every day for the rest of your lives. We want you to think about the hands that made them. The last prisoner she stopped at was Kel. She held up the drawing of the little girl and the stars. Her name was Kim Un-bi, Han said. She was 7 years old. She wanted to be an explorer. She wanted to visit every planet in the galaxy. She pressed the drawing into Kel's bound hands. You will keep this. You will look at it every morning when you wake up, and every night before you sleep, and you will know that you are alive only because she cannot be. Kel stared at the drawing. For the first time since his capture, his composure broke. Tears fell from his golden eyes onto the paper. Why? He whispered. Why not simply kill us? Tay answered him. Because killing you would make us like you. Because revenge satisfies no one, in the end. Because we want you to live long enough to understand what you did. Truly understand it. In a way that execution would never allow. He turned to address not just the prisoners, but the cameras that were broadcasting this moment across the galaxy. To all species watching, hear this clearly. Humanity did not want empire. We did not want conquest. We wanted to explore the stars, to meet new peoples, to learn and grow alongside our galactic neighbors. The Council decided that our ambition was a threat that needed to be destroyed. His voice grew stronger. They were wrong. But so were we, in the way we fought back. We broke their civilization. We caused suffering across dozens of worlds. We became something we never wanted to be. Today, we take the first step back toward what we should have been, all along. He gestured at the prisoners. These beings will not be tortured. They will not be humiliated. They will be treated with dignity, even as they face the consequences of their choices. Because that is what separates justice from vengeance. That is what separates civilization from barbarism. He paused, letting his words settle. The old galaxy is dead. The council that ruled through fear and correction is gone. What rises in its place will be built on different principles. No species will be reduced for growing too fast. No species will be punished for daring to reach toward the stars. And no species, no matter how old or powerful, will ever again believe that murdering children is an acceptable form of diplomacy. Commander Yuna Park stood at the back of the courtroom, watching the proceedings. Beside her stood a young girl, the daughter of one of the few survivors of New Busan. The girl had been off-world with her father when the attack came. Her mother and brother had not been so lucky. What happens now? The girl asked quietly. Yuna looked down at her. Now we rebuild. Now we make something better. Now we prove that all of this suffering meant something. Will they hate us? The other species? Maybe. Some of them. For a while. Yuna watched as the prisoners were led away to begin their long sentence of remembrance. But hate fades. Understanding takes its place. That is what we are counting on. Later that day, Yuna stood at a viewport, watching as colony ships launched toward distant stars. New colonies, new beginnings. Human children who would grow up in a galaxy that no longer saw them as threats to be managed. Admiral Han joined her. Do you think we did the right thing? Yuna asked. All of it. The war. The destruction. This trial. Han considered the question for a long time. I think we did what we had to do. Whether it was right, history will decide. She watched the ships disappear into the void. But I know this much. No one will ever look at humanity again and see something small. Something to be corrected. Something to be reduced. Yuna touched the glass, as if she could reach out and touch the stars themselves. The little girl in the drawing, she said quietly. Kim Unbi. She wanted to be an explorer. I know. I named my ship after her. The one I will command when I join the colony expedition next month. Yuna smiled softly. She will visit every planet in the galaxy. Just like she wanted, just through different eyes. Han put a hand on her shoulder. Then she will get her wish after all. That is something. Maybe that is enough. They stood together in silence, watching the stars, thinking about the dead and the living and all the futures that were still possible. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity would make sure it never changed back.